The manila envelope sat on my desk like a ticking bomb. Inside was the proposal that could change everything: a chance to acquire Hart Industries, my family's crumbling empire. 10 years of waiting, of building myself up from nothing, had led to this moment. I'm Daphne, and the last time I saw my father, he was tearing up my acceptance letter to Stanford Business School. "We need the money for your brother's startup," he had said, not even looking me in the eye. "Maximus has real potential." My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. The financial statements confirmed what my sources had told me. Hart Industries was hemorrhaging money. My brother's real potential had burned through millions in failed ventures, and now the company was on its knees. "Are you actually going to do this?" Juliet asked, perched on the edge of my desk. She'd been my rock since college, when we were both working 3 jobs to make ends meet. "You mean, am I going to save the company that threw me out like yesterday's trash?" I smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Watch me." My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Please call me, sweetheart. Your father's been asking about you." I deleted it without responding. The same father who'd told me I was dead to him when I defied his wishes and took out student loans for college. The memory still burned like acid. "The board meeting is next Thursday," Juliet said, scanning through the documents. "We could have the paperwork ready by then." "Perfect." I stood up and walked to the window of our downtown office. 10 floors below, the city hummed with life. "They won't see it coming." "Daphne," Juliet's voice softened. "Are you sure this is about saving the company and not about revenge?" Before I could answer, Eduardo burst into my office. My ex-boyfriend now worked as a financial analyst, and his face was flushed with excitement. "You're not going to believe this," he said, waving his tablet. "Maximus just tanked another deal. Hart Industries stock is in freefall." I took the tablet, scanning the headlines. My brother had somehow managed to lose a $50 million contract with a single drunken outburst at a client meeting. "Your timing couldn't be better," Eduardo said. "They're desperate for investors." "Then let's not keep them waiting." I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd never forgotten. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Hart Industries, Esther Bennett speaking." "Hello, Esther. This is Daphne Hart. I'd like to schedule a meeting with the board." The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, Esther cleared her throat. "Daphne, it's been a long time. 10 years, 2 months, and 15 days. But who's counting?" I kept my voice light. "I represent a group of investors interested in acquiring a significant stake in Hart Industries. I'll need to check with your father." "Of course. Tell him the offer expires in 48 hours. I hung up before she could respond. Juliet whistled low. "You really want to face them again?" I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. My old Stanford acceptance letter, rescued from the trash a decade ago. "They made me who I am today. The least I can do is return the favor." My phone buzzed again. An email this time. Esther had scheduled the board meeting for tomorrow morning. That was faster than expected. Father must be truly desperate. "Well," I said, straightening my jacket, "looks like I'm having a family reunion sooner than planned." Eduardo squeezed my shoulder. "Want me to come with you?" I shook my head. "This is something I need to do alone." That night, I stood in front of my closet, selecting my armor for tomorrow's battle. The black Armani suit I'd bought with my first major consulting fee. The Louboutins that had carried me through countless negotiations. The pearl necklace that had belonged to my grandmother, the only family member who'd believed in me. My phone lit up with another text from my mother. "Your father's not well, Daphne. Please don't do anything rash." I turned off my phone and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow, I would walk into that boardroom not as the scared 19-year-old they'd thrown away, but as the woman who held their fate in her hands. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd said I'd never amount to anything without their support. Now their only hope of survival rested with the daughter they'd disowned. I raised my glass to my reflection in the window. "Here's to family reunions," I whispered, watching the city lights twinkle below. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. The security guard at Hart Industries did a double take when I walked through the lobby. "Miss Daphne?" His weathered face broke into a smile. "Is that really you?" "Hello, Frank." I returned his smile, genuine this time. He'd always slipped me candy when I visited Dad's office as a kid. Still keeping watch after all these years? Someone has to. He lowered his voice. Place isn't what it used to be. Your brother. He shook his head. The elevator ride to the top floor was a trip through time. Same wood paneling, same subtle vanilla scent, but the energy was different. Gone was the bustling confidence I remembered. The few employees I passed looked stressed, haunted. Juliet was waiting by the boardroom, tablet in hand. I've been digging deeper into their financials, she whispered. It's worse than we thought, way worse. How bad? They're 3 months away from bankruptcy. Maximus didn't just lose that last contract. He managed to trigger penalty clauses in 5 others. The lawsuits alone could sink them. Before I could respond, the boardroom door opened. Esther stepped out, perfectly coiffed as always, but with new worry lines around her eyes. The board is ready for you. She paused, studying my face. Daphne, your father doesn't know it's you. Perfect. I straightened my jacket. Let's keep it that way until I'm ready. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 12 pairs of eyes followed me to the podium, but I only cared about 2. My father sat at the head of the table, grayer than I remembered, his once commanding presence diminished. Beside him, Maximus slouched in his chair, nursing what looked suspiciously like a hangover. Good morning, I began, my voice steady. I represent Aurora Consulting. We've reviewed your situation and are prepared to make an offer. My father's eyes narrowed, trying to place my face. Maximus was too busy texting under the table to notice anything. I clicked to the first slide of my presentation. Your company's market value has dropped 60% in the past year. Your debt-to-equity ratio is unsustainable, and your current leadership, I looked directly at Maximus, has destroyed shareholder confidence. Now wait just a minute, Maximus interrupted, finally looking up. Recognition dawned in his bloodshot eyes. Holy shit, Daphne? The room erupted in whispers. My father's face went pale, then red. What is the meaning of this? Business, father. Pure and simple. I advanced to the next slide. Aurora Consulting offers to acquire a controlling interest in Hart Industries for 40 cents on the dollar. Given your current situation, it's more than generous. This is absurd, Maximus sputtered. You can't seriously... Your last venture lost $12 million in 6 months. I cut him off. The one before that, $8 million. Shall I continue? Enough. My father's fist hit the table. This meeting is over. Your shareholders might disagree. I nodded to Juliet, who distributed folders to each board member. Inside, you'll find detailed documentation of every failed project, every mismanaged contract, and every questionable expense charged to the company in the past 5 years. I smiled at Maximus. Those Vegas trips weren't really business development, were they? An elderly board member adjusted his glasses, scanning the documents. Steve, these numbers, is this accurate? My father's jaw clenched. We can explain. The offer expires in 24 hours, I continued. After that, this information goes public. Your choice. Maximus stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. You ungrateful little... Sit down, my father snapped. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. Daphne, can we discuss this privately? My lawyers will be in touch. I gathered my things, heart pounding beneath my calm exterior. Oh, and Maximus, the Rolex you're wearing, the company paid for that too. I'd hold on to it. You might need to pawn it soon. I walked out with my head high, Juliet right behind me. In the elevator, my hands finally started shaking. That was incredible, Juliet breathed. Did you see their faces? It's not over yet. I leaned against the wall. They'll fight back. Let them try. We have everything documented. Back in my office, I found a message from my mother. What have you done? Your father's blood pressure. I deleted it without reading further. My phone immediately rang. Esther. The board wants another meeting, she said. Tomorrow morning, and Daphne. There's something you should know. Some documents I found in your father's private files. Letters. To you. Never sent. I gripped the phone tighter. What letters? Come early tomorrow, before the meeting. You need to see these. After hanging up, I stood at my window, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. The triumph I'd expected to feel was tainted by something else. Doubt? Regret? No, I whispered to my reflection. They made their choice 10 years ago. Now it's my turn. But as night fell over the city, I couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would bring more than just a business deal to a close. It would force us all to face the ghost we'd been running from for the past decade. I arrived at Hart Industries an hour before sunrise, the corridors still dark and empty. Esther was waiting in her office, a thick manila folder on her desk. "I found these while digitizing your father's old files," she said, pushing the folder toward me. "He wrote to you, every month for the first few years after you left. And never sent them?" My voice came out sharper than intended. He tried to reach out, in his way. Esther's eyes softened. "But pride is a terrible thing, Daphne." Before I could open the folder, hurried footsteps echoed down the hall. Maximus burst in, his expensive suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Well, if it isn't the prodigal sister," he sneered. "Come to destroy what's left of this family?" "You've done a fine job of that yourself." I stood, matching his glare. "How many millions did you lose last quarter?" "You think you're so perfect." He stepped closer, alcohol heavy on his breath. "While you were off playing entrepreneur, I was here, trying to keep this company alive." "Trying to keep it alive?" I laughed. "You've been bleeding it dry to fund your parties and failed ventures." "Enough!" Our father's voice boomed from the doorway. He looked older in the harsh morning light, the weight of decades pressing down on his shoulders. "Both of you, in my office. Now." We followed him like scolded children. The corner office still looked exactly as I remembered. The same heavy oak desk, the same family photos on the wall. But one was missing. Mine. "Sit." Father lowered himself into his chair. "Daphne, what do you want? Really want? What's rightfully mine?" I met his gaze. "The company you never thought I could handle." "You abandoned us," Maximus interjected. "Abandoned?" I turned on him. "Father tore up my college acceptance letter because you needed money for another one of your brilliant ideas. What was it that time? The social network for pets? That could have worked if what? If you hadn't spent the development budget on yacht parties?" Silence. Father's hand slammed the desk. "Maximus, leave us." "But Dad, now." Maximus stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Father pulled open his desk drawer and took out a bottle of antacids. "I've made mistakes," he said quietly, popping 2 tablets. "With both of you." "Save it." I stood to leave. "The board meets in an hour. Make your decision." "I already have." He looked up, his eyes tired. "I'm stepping down as CEO, and..." He swallowed hard. "I've already disowned Maximus." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "Last month, after the Singapore deal fell through, he'd been embezzling company funds, hiding losses." Father's voice cracked. "Just like you said in your presentation. So now you're disowning him too?" The irony was almost too much. "History repeating itself?" "No." He pulled out a document. "I'm naming you CEO." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "You can't be serious." "The board agrees. You've proven yourself. Built something from nothing." He pushed the paper across the desk. "While I was busy protecting Maximus, you were becoming everything I should have helped you be." A knock at the door interrupted us. Esther entered, her face grave. "Sir, there's a situation in the lobby. Maximus is making a scene." We rushed downstairs to find Maximus surrounded by security guards, waving a tablet wildly. "Look at this," he shouted when he saw us. "She's been planning this for years, buying up shares through shell companies, planning stories about our failures." "Lower your voice," Father ordered. "Or what? You'll disown me too?" Maximus laughed hysterically. "Too late for that, isn't it, Dad? But hey, at least you have your precious daughter back." "Sir," Frank the security guard stepped forward. "Should we remove him?" Before anyone could respond, Maximus lunged at me. "This is all your fault." Father moved with surprising speed, stepping between us. Then he clutched his chest, staggering. "Dad." The anger drained from Maximus's face. I caught Father as he slumped, lowering him to the floor. "Call an ambulance." "I'm fine." Father wheezed, but his face was ashen. "Just need a minute." As sirens wailed in the distance, I held my father's hand, watching his labored breathing. Maximus stood frozen, all his bravado gone. "The letters," Father whispered. "Did Esther—" "Yes," I said, "but I haven't read them yet." He squeezed my hand weakly. "Read them, please." The paramedics rushed in, pushing us aside. As they loaded Father onto a stretcher, I caught Maximus's eye. For a moment, we weren't rivals or enemies, just two scared kids watching their father being wheeled away. "This isn't how I wanted it," I said softly. Maximus just shook his head and followed the stretcher out, leaving me alone in the lobby of the empire I'd fought so hard to claim. The manila folder with Father's letters felt heavy in my bag, waiting to reveal whatever truths or lies he'd written all those years ago. The hospital waiting room smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. I sat alone, the manila folder of letters unopened in my lap. Maximus paced near the vending machines, while our mother sat across the room, deliberately avoiding my gaze. "Family of Steve?" A doctor emerged, her face carefully neutral. We gathered around her. "He's stable," she said. "The stress triggered a mild heart attack. He'll need rest, but he should make a full recovery." "Can we see him?" Mom asked. "One at a time. He's asking for Daphne." Mom's sharp intake of breath cut like a knife. Maximus kicked a chair. Father lay small and pale against the white hospital sheets, monitors beeping steadily beside him. "The letters," he said as soon as I entered. "Have you read them?" I shook my head. Read the first one, out loud. My hands trembled as I opened the folder, pulling out the earliest dated letter. "Dear Daphne," I began. "Today you left for college. The house feels empty without your laugh. I told myself I was doing the right thing, protecting the family business. But watching you walk away with just one suitcase, I've never felt like more of a failure as a father." I stopped, my throat tight. "Keep reading," he whispered. "Maximus lost the investment again. He reminds me so much of myself at his age, reckless, arrogant. I kept throwing money at him, hoping he'd learn, hoping he'd grow. Instead, I lost the one child who truly understood what it means to build something from nothing. You worked 3 jobs in high school, saved every penny. I was too proud to see what was right in front of me." "There are more," Father said. "One for every month you were gone." A knock interrupted us. Esther stood in the doorway, clutching a laptop. "I'm sorry, but this can't wait. The board is meeting in an hour. They're voting on the acquisition." "Go," Father said. "Take the letters with you. Read them when you're ready." In the elevator back to Hard Industries, I opened another letter at random. "Dear Daphne, saw your name in the business journal today. Your consulting firm helped turn around that struggling tech startup. Pride doesn't begin to describe what I felt. Shame comes closer. I drafted an email to congratulate you, but what right do I have? I threw away that right the day I chose Maximus's failures over your success. Those are private." Maximus's voice made me jump. I hadn't heard him enter the elevator. "You knew about these?" "Found them in his study last year." He leaned against the wall, suddenly looking very tired. "He writes them when he's drunk, usually after I've screwed up something else." The elevator doors opened to chaos. Board members huddled in groups, whispering urgently. Esther rushed toward us. "The vote's been moved up," she said. "They're starting now." "Wait," Maximus grabbed my arm. "Before you go in there, there's something you should know about the Singapore deal. I already know you embezzled—" "No," he cut me off. "It's worse. I didn't just lose the money. I sold classified company data to our competitors. If that gets out, it's not just bankruptcy we're facing. It's criminal charges." I stared at him. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," he swallowed hard, "Dad doesn't know, and it would kill him if he found out. Literally, after today." The boardroom fell silent as we entered. I took my place at the podium, the acquisition papers heavy in my hands. "Before we vote," I said, "I have a new proposal." Murmurs rippled through the room as I laid out my plan. A restructuring instead of an acquisition. I would take over as CEO, but with conditions. A full audit of all accounts, new compliance protocols, and a chance for redemption. This company was built on second chances, I concluded, thinking of the letters in my bag. Maybe it's time we remembered that. The vote was unanimous. As board members filed out, Maximus approached me. "Why?" he asked. "You could have destroyed us all. Read this." I handed him one of Father's letters. "He never gave up on you, even when he should have." And you? His voice was small. Have you given up on me? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Eduardo. Just got word about Singapore. Documents leaked. Press will have it by morning. I looked at Maximus, who was reading Father's letter with tears in his eyes. No, I said finally. I haven't given up. But starting tomorrow, we do things my way. No more secrets, no more shortcuts. The Singapore deal. We'll handle it, together. But Maximus? I met his eyes. This is your last chance. Don't make me regret it. He nodded slowly, handing back the letter. As he left, I pulled out another one from the folder. There were still so many to read, so many years of unspoken words to unpack. But for now, there was work to do. A company to save, a family to rebuild. One letter at a time. The morning headlines hit like a tsunami. Hart Industries scandal. Corporate espionage allegations surface. My phone hadn't stopped ringing since dawn. The SEC wants a statement, Juliet announced, bursting into my office. And there's a crowd of reporters in the lobby. Get legal on the line, I said, scanning through another one of Father's letters. This one was from 3 years ago, after my first major business success. And find Maximus, now. About that, Juliet shifted uncomfortably. He's not answering his phone, but Eduardo's here, says it's urgent. Eduardo walked in, looking like he hadn't slept. The Singapore documents, they're worse than we thought. Maximus didn't just sell data, he sold prototype designs, military contract stuff. Jesus Christ. I dropped the letter I was holding. How bad? Federal investigation bad. The Department of Defense is involved now. A knock at the door interrupted us. My mother stood there, looking smaller than I remembered. Your father's asking for you both, she said quietly. He's seen the news. At the hospital, Father sat up in bed, newspapers spread across his lap. Maximus was already there, staring out the window. Sit down, both of you. Father's voice was stronger today. Maximus, explain yourself. I can't. Maximus turned, his face haggard. I screwed up, again. But this time I can't fix it. No, Father agreed. You can't, but Daphne might be able to. I looked up sharply. What? The military contracts, Father said. They were your specialty in consulting, weren't they? Crisis management for defense contractors? You followed my career? He gestured to the letters scattered across his hospital bed. Every step of it. The prototype designs, Eduardo cut in. I hadn't even noticed him follow us in. If we can prove they were preliminary, never approved for development. We'd still face penalties, I said, but not federal charges. I have the original drafts, Maximus said suddenly. In a storage unit, everything showing they were rejected concepts, never meant for production. Father closed his eyes. Get them, now. As Maximus rushed out, Father picked up one of his letters. This one's from last month. Would you read it? I took the paper with trembling hands. Dear Daphne, today I watched you on CNBC talking about corporate restructuring. You were brilliant, confident, everything I failed to see when you were younger. I keep a photo of you in my desk drawer from your high school graduation. Sometimes I take it out and try to understand how I could have been so blind. Stop, Father's voice cracked. The rest doesn't matter now. What matters is fixing this. Together. Eduardo cleared his throat. The press is still waiting for a statement. Then let's give them one. I stood up. But first, I need to know everything. No more secrets. Over the next hour, Father and Eduardo laid out the full scope of the Singapore disaster. Maximus returned with boxes of documents, proof that the leaked designs had been rejected early in development. It's damage control, I said finally. But we can work with this. You can work with this, Father corrected. You're CEO now, remember? About that? I pulled out the last letter I'd read, dated just 6 months ago. You wrote that you were proud of how I built something from nothing, that you wished you'd had my business sense at my age. Every word true. Then trust me to fix this, but we do it my way. Complete transparency, full cooperation with investigators, and Maximus, I turned to my brother. You come clean about everything. They'll crucify me, he whispered. No, I said. They'll see a company taking responsibility, making things right. The next few hours were a blur of lawyers, press statements, and regulatory filings. By sunset, I stood before a crowd of reporters in the Hart Industries lobby. Today, we discovered a breach of trust, I began. Not just with our partners, but with our values. As the new CEO of Hart Industries, I'm here to take full responsibility. Later that night, I returned to Father's hospital room. He was asleep, letters scattered across his bed like fallen leaves, each one a year of regret, of words unsaid. Maximus sat in the corner, reading through them. I never knew, he said softly, how much he worried about both of us. Neither did I. I picked up a letter from the pile. But we know now. Can we really fix this? I thought about the press conference, the meetings with regulators scheduled for tomorrow, the mountain of work ahead. Not alone, I said finally, but maybe together. He nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. The road ahead would be hard. Trust would need to be rebuilt, not just with the public, but with each other. My phone buzzed. Juliet sending the first round of press coverage. The headlines were brutal, but beneath them, I saw something else. A chance to rewrite our story. Not as the vengeful daughter or the prodigal son, but as a family finally learning to read each other's letters. The Department of Defense wants a full audit, Juliet announced, dropping a stack of papers on my desk. They're giving us 48 hours to comply. Better than an immediate shutdown, I said, rubbing my temples. 3 days had passed since the Singapore scandal broke, and I'd barely left the office. A soft knock interrupted us. Mom stood in the doorway, holding a casserole dish. You need to eat, she said, both of you. The smell of her signature lasagna filled the office as she set up an impromptu dinner on my conference table. For a moment, I was 16 again, studying late while she made sure I didn't skip meals. Your father's being released tomorrow, she said, serving generous portions. He wants to have a family dinner, everyone together. Mom, I started. Please, Daphne. She touched my hand. There's something you all need to know. Before I could respond, Maximus burst in, waving a folder. Found it. The original Singapore contract. Look at section 7.3. The designs were explicitly marked as rejected concepts. He stopped short at the sight of Mom. The last time we'd all been in a room together, he'd been trying to punch me in the lobby. Sit, Mom commanded. Eat. We ate in awkward silence until Juliet's phone buzzed. The auditors are here early, she said. I should go, I nodded. We'll handle this. As soon as she left, Mom put down her fork. Your father's stepping down permanently. We know, Maximus said. The board meeting? No, she cut him off. You don't understand. The heart attack? It wasn't his first. He's been sick for months. The doctors say the stress. The lasagna turned to ash in my mouth. Why didn't you tell us? He wouldn't let me. Said he needed to fix things first. She pulled out an envelope. He wrote this last night. Wanted you both to read it together. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Daphne and Maximus, by the time you read this, you'll know about my condition. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe a year. Not enough time to make up for my failures as a father, but maybe enough to help you both succeed where I couldn't. Stop, Maximus choked out. I can't. Keep reading, Mom insisted. Maximus, I enabled your worst instincts, threw money at problems instead of teaching you to solve them. Daphne, I dismissed your potential because it didn't fit my narrow vision. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you both to learn from my mistakes. The company needs both of you, Daphne's discipline and Maximus's creativity. Together you might build something greater than I ever could. The letter blurred as tears filled my eyes. A commotion outside drew our attention. Ms. Hart, Esther rushed in. The auditors found something in the old files about the Singapore deal. The next hour was a whirlwind of revelations. The auditors had uncovered emails showing the leaked designs had been deliberately marked as viable by a senior executive, someone trying to sabotage both Maximus and the company. It was Robert from the board, Esther explained. He's been working with our competitors for months. Maximus was just a convenient scapegoat. Get me every email, I ordered, every document, and call Eduardo. We need to revise our press statement. Already on it, Maximus said, surprising me. He'd pulled out his laptop and was typing furiously. I've been tracking Robert's communications for weeks. Didn't understand what I was seeing until now. Mom watched us work with a small smile. Your father should see this. See what? I asked. His children, finally working together. The next morning, we gathered in Father's hospital room. He sat up straighter as I laid out what we'd found. Robert? He shook his head. I trusted him for 20 years. He's being arrested as we speak, Eduardo reported from the doorway. The FBI's involved now. And the company? Father asked. Stock's already recovering, Maximus said. Once we release the evidence. No, I interrupted. No more hiding behind press releases. We hold a press conference, all of us. Show them we're united. Father reached for his letters. There's one more you should read first. The last one I wrote. This letter was different. Dated yesterday, the handwriting shaky but determined. My dearest children, watching you work together these past days has been the greatest gift a dying man could ask for. Daphne, your strength has become our foundation. Maximus, your insight, when properly focused, sees what others miss. Together, you've already proven wiser than I ever was. We're not done yet, Maximus said quietly. No, I agreed. We're just getting started. Father smiled, reaching for both our hands. Outside his room, I could hear reporters gathering, auditors combing through files, the wheels of justice and business turning. But in here, for just a moment, we were simply a family, broken, healing, but finally reading from the same page. The press conference room buzzed with tension. Cameras clicked and reporters whispered as our family took the stage together. Father in a wheelchair, Mom standing behind him, Maximus and I flanking them like guards. Thank you all for coming, I began, gripping the podium. Today, we're here to set the record straight about Hart Industries, about family, and about redemption. A reporter's hand shot up. Ms. Hart, how do you respond to allegations that this is a power grab, using your brother's mistakes to seize control? Before I could answer, Maximus stepped forward. My sister didn't seize anything. I nearly destroyed this company through my recklessness. But the recent allegations about the Singapore deal... Mr. Hart, another reporter interrupted. Sources say you sold classified designs to competitors. No, I cut in. He was framed. We have evidence that board member Robert Thompson orchestrated the entire scandal. The room erupted. Cameras flashed as Eduardo distributed packets of evidence, emails, transactions, proof of Thompson's betrayal. The FBI has arrested Mr. Thompson, Father announced, his voice weaker than I'd ever heard it. But that's not why we're here today. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled. Maximus caught him before he fell. Dad, don't, I whispered, but he waved me off. My children, he continued, gripping the podium for support, have shown me what true leadership looks like, not in their successes, but in how they've faced failure, together. Suddenly, his face went pale. He clutched his chest, slumping forward. Dad, Maximus and I moved simultaneously, catching him as he collapsed. The room exploded into chaos. Reporters jumped to their feet, cameras flashing wildly. Mom screamed for an ambulance. Stay with us, I pleaded, holding Father's hand as paramedics rushed in. Please, we still have so much to fix. His eyes fluttered open briefly. The letters, he whispered. Last page. The hospital waiting room felt smaller this time. Maximus paced while I flipped through Father's letters, searching for the final page he'd mentioned. Found it, I said finally. It was different from the others. Not a letter, but a document. What is it? Maximus asked, peering over my shoulder. His will. He changed it yesterday. My hands trembled as I read. He's splitting everything equally between us. The company, the assets, everything. Co-CEOs? Maximus sank into a chair. That's impossible. We'd kill each other. Maybe that's the point. I looked at the last line Father had written. Together or not at all. The doctor emerged, her face grim. The stress was too much. He's stable but in a coma. The next 24 hours are critical. Mom broke down, sobbing into her hands. Maximus punched the wall, leaving a dent. Stop it, I snapped. This isn't helping. Then what do we do? He demanded. The press is having a field day. Thompson's lawyers are spinning everything. The company's hanging by a thread, and now this? We do what he asked. I held up the will. We work together. How? We can barely be in the same room without fighting. Then we learn. I thrust Father's letters at him. Read these. Really read them. He spent 10 years writing about both of us, seeing what we couldn't see in ourselves. Esther burst into the waiting room. The board's calling an emergency meeting. They're voting to sell the company. Maximus and I exchanged looks. For the first time, I saw in his eyes the same determination I felt. Not happening, we said simultaneously. The boardroom was packed when we arrived. Board members fell silent as we entered, the prodigal son and the vengeful daughter, now standing united. Before you vote, I announced, you should know Father's final decision. Maximus stepped forward. We're taking control, together, as co-CEOs. Impossible, someone shouted. You'll destroy what's left of the company. No, I said firmly. We'll save it, because we finally understand what Father knew all along. We're stronger together than apart. Prove it, a board member challenged. Maximus pulled out his laptop. I've spent the last 24 hours tracking every deal Thompson sabotaged. Daphne's team has already drafted recovery plans for each one. And I've secured bridge financing, I added, based on Maximus's analysis of our untapped markets. We presented for an hour, tag-teaming like we'd been doing it for years instead of days. When we finished, the board sat in stunned silence. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Come quick, he's awake. We raced back to the hospital, arriving just as Father opened his eyes. Did you read it? He whispered. The last page? Yes, we answered together. And Maximus took his hand. We're ready to try it your way. Together, I added, taking his other hand. Father smiled weakly. Then my work here is done. Outside the hospital room, reporters gathered again, hungry for the next chapter in our family saga. But for now, we sat with our father, 3 broken pieces finally fitting together, ready to write a new story. Together. The autumn breeze rustled through the courtyard as workers installed the new Heart Industries sign. Father sat in his wheelchair beside me, wrapped in a warm blanket, watching the company's rebranding take shape. The logo looks different, he observed. Maximus designed it, I said. Combined the old with the new, like us. Inside, the office hummed with renewed energy. Employees who'd once walked with slumped shoulders now moved with purpose. The fear of collapse had been replaced by something else. Hope. Ms. Hart, Esther hurried over. The Singapore clients are here for the settlement meeting. Both Ms. Harts, a familiar voice corrected. Mom stepped out of the elevator, elegant in her new role as board chairwoman. Where's Maximus? Right here. My brother emerged from his office, straightening his tie. Gone were the designer labels and flashy accessories. He'd finally learned that substance mattered more than style. The settlement meeting was tense but productive. Our legal team presented evidence of Thompson's manipulation, while Maximus walked everyone through the reconstructed timeline of events. We're not asking you to forget what happened, I told the Singapore representatives. We're asking for a chance to make it right. And why should we trust you now? Their lead negotiator asked. Because we're not the same company, Maximus answered. Or the same people. Father wheeled himself forward. My children have done in weeks what I couldn't do in decades. They've built something stronger than pride. The Singapore team exchanged looks. Finally, their CEO nodded. We accept the settlement terms. After they left, Eduardo rushed in with breaking news. Thompson took a plea deal. He's naming names, other executives involved in corporate espionage. Good, Maximus said. Let everything come to light. Father coughed, drawing our attention. His health had improved, but time remained our enemy. I need to show you something, he said, in my old office. We followed him to the corner office I'd once been forbidden to enter. He wheeled to the wall of family photos and pressed a hidden panel. The wall slid open, revealing a small safe. The combination, he said, is both your birthdays. Inside lay a single envelope, yellowed with age. I wrote this the day you left, Daphne. It was supposed to be my resignation letter. I opened it carefully. Dear board members, I have failed not just as a CEO, but as a father. In choosing between my children, I have destroyed what matters most. I hereby resign. Why didn't you send it? Maximus asked. Fear, Father admitted. The same fear that kept me from reaching out to Daphne all those years. The same fear that made me enable your mistakes, Maximus. And now? I asked. He smiled. Now I'm not afraid anymore, because I see what you've built together. A commotion outside drew us to the window. The new sign was complete, illuminating the darkening sky. Hart Industries, building tomorrow together. There's one more thing, Mom said, pulling out a familiar manila folder. We found more letters, not from your father, from each other. Maximus paled. You kept those? She handed me a stack of papers, letters my brother had written but never sent during our years apart. I gave her my own collection, emails drafted but never sent to Maximus. Read them, she said. Both of you. We sat in Father's office as the sun set, reading each other's unspoken words. Maximus's letters revealed guilt, jealousy, and eventually pride in my success. Mine showed anger giving way to concern, then hope for his redemption. Why didn't we just talk? Maximus asked, his voice rough. Because we're Harts, I laughed through tears. We don't do anything the easy way. Father wheeled between us. But you're doing it now. That's what matters. A knock interrupted us. Juliet stood in the doorway with Eduardo. Sorry, but you need to see this. They led us to the lobby where employees had gathered around the television. The news showed Thompson being led into court, then cut to footage of Hart Industries' recovery. In a remarkable turnaround, the reporter said, Hart Industries has become a model of corporate rehabilitation. Led by siblings Daphne and Maximus Hart, the company has... Turn it off, I said. We've got work to do. Father grabbed my hand. You already did it. You both did. Looking around the lobby, at our employees' proud faces, at Mom's tears of joy, at Maximus standing tall beside me, I finally understood. This wasn't just about saving a company. It was about saving a family. So, Maximus said, ready to build tomorrow together? I thought about all the letters, all the words we'd left unspoken, all the time we'd lost. But looking at Father's peaceful smile, I knew we'd found something more valuable than revenge or redemption. We'd found our way home. Together, I agreed, taking his offered hand. That's the only way forward. Way.
Hi there, I'm Rowena. At my sister's birthday, she smiled at me in front of everyone, then treated me like the hired help behind the scenes. No seat at the table, no name on the list, just a mop and a fake thank you. So I sent her an invoice for $20,000. Voided, with one note, 100% off, sisterhood gone. But what really broke me? It wasn't the task list or the spilled champagne. It was realizing I'd been used in plain sight for years, and no one ever said a word. How does a family let that happen? When Jolene's voice message came through, I was sitting at my kitchen table, half distracted by a spreadsheet from work and the hum of the dishwasher in the background. Hey sis, I just need a tiny favor, like help with some event stuff. You're so good at this and I'm drowning in prep. I smiled. It wasn't the first time she'd asked for help, and probably wouldn't be the last. Jolene had that sing-song tone she always used when she wanted something. It sounded light, casual, like this was no big deal. I texted back, of course, anything for you. 3 words. That's all it took to rope me in. By the next day, I had 5 emails from her. Guest list spreadsheets, table mock-ups, caterer menus, color palettes. I just need an extra pair of eyes. Quickly turned into me managing her entire birthday party like it was a corporate event. She even asked me to help her find a florist in Bellevue last minute. I work in logistics, so juggling multiple threads isn't new to me. But doing that while managing a full client calendar and late-night vendor calls for her party? That started to wear thin. Still, I told myself it was fine. She was my sister. Family helps. A few days in, she texted me again. Oh, also, can we keep it on the low that you're helping? I kind of want people to think I pulled this off myself. You know how people are. I hesitated. That sat in my chest differently. Still, I replied, sure, whatever makes you happy. Funny thing is, a few of her friends messaged me later, praising Jolene's planning skills. She's so organized, one of them wrote. I typed out a reply, deleted it. Let them think what they want. The tone of her text started to shift. Gone were the sweet emojis and thank yous. Now it was just, can you fix the RSVP link? I'm swamped. We lost the dessert vendor. Can you call someone in Seattle? No, please. No, appreciate you. And then Colby chimed in during a family video call, grinning like he thought it was a compliment. Honestly, you're saving our asses. Jolene would be lost without you. I forced a laugh. But deep down, something was changing. 3 weeks of balancing invoices, dealing with flaky decorators, and updating guest lists between my own deadlines had me running on fumes. Still, I convinced myself it would all be worth it. Until last night. She sent me the updated seating chart. I glanced through it quickly, checking for any issues, then scanned for my name. Nothing. I opened the PDF again, slower this time, checked every table, cross-referenced the guest list. Still nothing. I double-checked for a reserved family table. There was one, with my parents, Colby's parents, his cousins, and not me. I stared at the screen. My chest went still. Maybe she just forgot. I packed my car the next morning before sunrise, more out of habit than excitement. The sky was still bruised with blue, and the coffee in my thermos had barely kicked in when I pulled onto I-5 heading north. The silence in the car was loud. I kept telling myself she probably just forgot to add me to the chart. Maybe it was a last-minute glitch. She was always last minute. By the time I arrived in Bellevue, the sun was high, the venue gleaming like something out of a bridal magazine. Twinkling string lights crisscrossed the entry canopy, and white hydrangeas bloomed in tall silver vases flanking the entrance. I stepped out carefully, smoothing my dress, gift in hand, an engraved crystal vase Jolene once pointed out in a catalog months ago. The girl at the welcome desk smiled with practiced ease. Clipboard in hand, she asked for my name. "Rowena," I said, adjusting my tote on my shoulder. She flipped a few pages, her brow creased. I don't see a Rowena here." I blinked. "Try under family? I'm Jolene's sister." "Oh, wait!" Her finger stopped. "You're listed under logistics support. Are you with the vendor crew?" There was a pause. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I shook my head slowly. "No, I'm family." She looked up, unsure. "Sorry, this is just what I was given." Before I could answer, Jolene passed by, all high heels and champagne-colored silk. She didn't slow down. "That's my sister," she called over her shoulder, barely glancing. "She's just helping out today. We needed all hands." My chest tightened. The girl smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes this time. I nodded once tightly and walked past the table. Inside, the party was already alive. Music humming through ceiling speakers, clusters of guests sipping rosé. I tried to breathe through it, keep my face neutral. I spotted a few familiar faces from her social circles, though none looked my way. Then a voice chirped behind me, high and sugary. "Wait, you're here?" I turned to see Brielle, Jolene's skincare influencer friend with 300K followers and an endless archive of outfit reels. She blinked at me, lips parted. "I didn't know Jolene had a sister. Honestly, I thought you were one of the florists." Another woman beside her giggled. "Yeah, the dress is kinda vendor-core, but cute though." They laughed and walked off before I could say anything. I stood still for a moment, then turned toward the seating chart. My name was nowhere. Again. Eventually, the coordinator directed me toward the overflow table. It was a narrow fold-out chair tucked behind a pillar, right next to the swinging kitchen doors. Every time the door opened, a gust of heat and the scent of garlic chicken hit my face. From my seat, I could see the champagne bar, the gold-framed photo booth, the designer cake, everything I helped make possible. But no one saw me. I tightened my grip on the gift in my lap and whispered, "Maybe I don't belong in her life anymore." I stayed seated for a while, pretending to scroll my phone, though my screen hadn't changed in 5 minutes. A server brushed past me with a tray of champagne flutes, barely noticing. The buzz of the party felt distant, like I was watching it from underwater. That's when I saw him. Malik. He was standing just past the dessert table, laughing, glass in hand, one foot angled casually toward Jolene. He looked the same. Polished, confident, that effortless charm he always carried like a second skin. My heart gave a strange, hollow thud. I hadn't seen Malik in almost 2 years. We dated for 4, nearly got engaged before he decided he needed space to grow. His version of space was vanishing without warning and reappearing 6 weeks later, on Jolene's Instagram story. She had captioned it, Still fam, always fam. I never brought it up. Never asked her why he was still around. Why she let him stay in her world while mine was falling apart. Malik leaned in to say something to her. She giggled, an actual giggle, and touched his wrist. I looked away. My mouth tasted like pennies. I opened Instagram, needing a distraction, and there it was, freshly posted 15 minutes ago, a story from Malik. A photo of him and Jolene, arms looped together, standing in front of the cake I helped her pick out. Text across the bottom. Celebrating my favorite girl # supportive fam. My fingers clenched the phone tighter than I realized. I locked the screen and set it face down on my lap, breathing through my nose, slow and deliberate. The burn in my chest didn't come from jealousy. It was betrayal, refined, repeated, and now applauded. I looked across the room again. Jolene stood near the stage, waving Malik toward her. He made his way through the crowd, pausing to shake hands and smirk. He passed right by me. No glance, no pause, no nod. Just walked past like I was part of the wallpaper. I caught my reflection in the window behind me. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked tired, smaller, as if every piece of her had been slowly chipped away and rearranged to make space for everyone else. I leaned forward slightly, voice low, meant for no one but me. Did they always see me as this invisible? I stood from my seat and walked toward the hallway that wrapped behind the ballroom. My legs felt stiff, like they didn't quite want to move with me. I needed air, or at least distance. Once I was steady enough, I made my way toward the gift table. I hadn't seen anyone open presents yet, but I figured maybe Jolene planned it for later. I just wanted to see if my gift was still there. Just to know it mattered. The table was cluttered now. Balloons drooped over the edges. Bright gift bags, big shiny bows, and oversized boxes filled most of the surface. Mine wasn't among them. I scanned the area. That's when I spotted it. My wrapped package half hidden behind a stack of empty catering trays. Still in the box I'd packed it in. Not unwrapped, not acknowledged, buried. As I stepped closer, I heard Brielle's voice behind me. Wait, who brings a whiskey set to a birthday party? That's kind of dad energy. Someone else replied, totally, like what even is that supposed to mean? They giggled, already walking away. I stared down at the box, a custom-engraved crystal decanter set. Classy, timeless. Jolene had once pointed to that exact style in a magazine, years ago, saying, "That's grown-up chic, I love that." I remembered. Of course I remembered. My fingers hovered over the ribbon. Then I turned and walked back toward the edge of the ballroom, where I spotted my mother leaning against the side wall near the photo booth. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "did Jolene mention anything about the gift I brought?" She raised a brow, half distracted. "What gift?" "The decanter set. It was on the registry for a while. I ordered it weeks ago." She shrugged, folding her arms. "Honey, don't overthink it. Jolene probably just got busy. You know how she is. Always caught up in a whirlwind. She's just playing." "Playing?" I echoed. "She didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You always take things so seriously. Lighten up." I nodded once and stepped back. There it was again, that quiet permission everyone gave her to be careless. They never asked why she did things. They only asked why I cared. What no one saw was me spending hours calling vendors, rescheduling a flight to make the party, skipping a quarterly work summit I'd prepped for all month. They didn't see the nights I stayed up cross-checking RSVPs, fixing her florist crisis, and choosing that gift like it actually meant something. None of that made it to the highlight reel. Back at the gift table, I picked up the box. It was heavier than I remembered. I held it for a moment, then glanced over my shoulder. There she was, Jolene, standing next to Malik and Colby, laughing as a photographer adjusted their pose. "Can we get a shot without the lady in the background?" he asked, motioning toward me. I stepped out of frame. Then I turned, walked over to the bench by the hallway, and carefully set the gift down. I looked one more time at the glass in her hand, raised high in celebration. She had no idea how many pieces of me were sitting under her spotlight. Next time she calls me too sensitive, she'll see how clear I've become. The music shifted to something more upbeat, and chatter filled the air as guests drifted toward the dessert table. I stayed near the back, just watching. My feet ached in those nude heels I regretted wearing. A server carrying a tray of champagne passed through a crowd of guests, and someone, probably tipsy, bumped into him. The tray tilted. Crystal flutes clinked. One fell, shattering at the edge of the table, golden liquid spilling like it was nothing. A waiter bent down immediately, grabbing a towel. Then Jolene's voice cut through the buzz. "Rowena, could you handle that?" I froze. The room didn't. She smiled at the waiter. "She's great at handling this kind of stuff. Seriously, she does this for a living." My hands curled into fists. Some heads turned. A few people paused their conversations to look my way. My heart didn't race. No, it stayed steady, which felt even more terrifying. I stepped forward, took the towel from the stunned waiter, and knelt to soak up the champagne like I had nothing better to do. No one offered to help. As I stood, wiping my hands on the edge of the towel, I felt a presence behind me. Colby. "You really do this better than the staff," he chuckled quietly. "Guess you always were great at the support roles." I turned and looked him dead in the eyes. He gave me a crooked grin and walked away like he'd just handed me a compliment. I stood still for another beat. Then I folded the towel and walked straight to Jolene, who was laughing with Brielle. I didn't smile. "I'm not your staff, not your fixer, not your stagehand. I'm your sister, and I'm done being your convenient tool." She blinked, confused. "Whoa, dramatic much?" "You think this is dramatic?" I said, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "Wait till you see what's next." The laughter died down around us. Brielle's hand fell from her glass. Colby was watching again, now leaning stiffly against the bar. Jolene narrowed her eyes. "Are you threatening me? At my own birthday?" I leaned in just enough. "No," I whispered. "I'm finally educating you." She didn't respond. For once, Jolene had no line ready, no comeback rehearsed, no fake laugh to hide behind. People were staring. I didn't care. I stepped back slowly, raising my chin. "You wanted to play boss, Jolene?" I said. "Then be ready to get the bill." The hotel room was quiet when I walked in, but my thoughts were anything but. I kicked off my shoes, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the blinking cursor on my laptop screen. The champagne stain on my dress was starting to crust. I didn't care. All I could think about was that laugh, hers, and the look in Colby's eyes when I told her the truth. I opened my photo folder. There were dozens. Screenshots of the planning emails, pictures of decor samples, a delivery schedule I'd pieced together when her vendor dropped out. And the seating chart, where my name was marked Logistics Vendor Access Only. I uploaded a slideshow, captioned it simply, "Helped plan the party, booked vendors, got the venue discount, then was told I was too sensitive while sitting behind the kitchen." I hit post. 10 minutes later, my notifications started pinging. A coworker commented, "Knew something felt off when you said you were going up there just to help. This isn't helping, this is being used." Another, "This is heartbreaking but also so brave." Danae messaged, "About damn time, you've been holding their world up too long." I set the phone down and let the glow of the screen fill the room. By morning, I'd gone semi-viral, within our little social circle anyway. A cousin reposted it. One of Jolene's old roommates commented, "Explains a lot." I wasn't sure what I expected. Then I checked my email. Subject, "Damage control, remove immediately." Jolene. The body of the email was short. "You made your point. Take it down. Families seeing this. Clients too. Don't ruin everything over a chair." Jolene. She had CC'd our parents, and Colby, a chair. That's what she reduced it to. Not the gift tossed aside, not the years of invisible support, not the floor I was told to mop on her big night. Just a chair. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a new story. I cropped out the sender's name but left the rest untouched. Captioned it, "Accountability isn't drama, silence isn't peace, and a chair isn't just a chair when it's the only one not meant for you." Jolene had made it public. I was going to finish it that way too. The post was still climbing in shares by the time I got the DM. Celeste. Her message was short, careful. "Hey, Rowena. Just wanted to say I'm really sorry. I was asked to pull the pics where you were in frame. Client's request. Hope you understand." I didn't answer right away. I opened Jolene's page instead. 27 photos from the party. The cake, the champagne, the crowd, Malik, Colby, even the flower arrangements. But not a single photo with me. I remembered standing right beside Jolene when the photos were taken. I was holding the clipboard, double-checking names for the dessert timing, so I scrolled deeper. Nothing, not even a cropped elbow. Then I called Merle, the planner. She answered on the second ring. Her tone was flat, nervous. "Rowena, hey. Did you know they tagged me as a vendor?" I asked calmly. "I mean, the venue just needs someone listed in that slot," she said quickly. "It's not personal. I just handle the schedule. You know how these things go." "You knew I wasn't a vendor," she sighed. "I just do what I'm paid to do." I closed my eyes for a beat. "And your silence? Is that paid too?" No response. I hung up. That afternoon, Jolene posted a boomerang of her sipping coffee on her porch, captioned, "No drama, just love plus loyalty." Then a second story. "Supportive sisters always cheer you on, even when they're not the star." That one stung, not because it was true, but because it was polished, weaponized sweetness, the kind that plays well online and stabs in private. By nightfall, someone had reposted a side-by-side, her curated caption beside my empty chair. A new message from an unknown account said, "Sounds like someone's bitter they didn't get the spotlight." I didn't reply. I opened an old folder. Inside were shots from the planning stages, me directing staff, adjusting lights, coordinating deliveries with Celeste. I looked at one photo where I stood pointing toward the cake table, the layout pinned under my fingers. I remembered how proud I'd been of the gold backdrop we sourced last minute, how Jolene hugged me after it arrived and whispered, "You're my secret weapon." Now I was a secret, all right. They wanted to erase me quietly. I was going to make that silence roar. The morning it started unraveling wasn't loud. It was quiet, too quiet. I was sipping black coffee in my Portland apartment when the first alert pinged, then the second, then 10 more. I opened my phone to a flurry of tags. A national lifestyle brand had reposted one of my screenshots. No edits, no context, just this caption. "We believe in integrity and inclusion. Our collaboration with Jolene has been discontinued effective immediately." I blinked. Scrolling further, I saw another statement from a skincare partner. "We are pausing future content featuring Jolene until further review." By mid-afternoon, gossip blogs had picked it up. Not because of me, because of her downfall. Screenshots of Jolene's messages were circulating, leaked by someone inside, showing her asking vendors to minimize shots with the logistics girl, to keep visuals on brand. I didn't feel joy. Not really. I just felt still. I opened my laptop and pulled up a blank invoice template. It wasn't petty. It was precise. Logistics support invoice. To Jolene Miles. Event, birthday celebration services, vendor coordination, crisis handling, floor planning, guest list edits. Total, $20,000. Status, voided note. 100% off sisterhood gone. I converted it to PDF. Attached it to a blank message. No caption, no emojis, sent. And closed my laptop. Later that night, I found the little note she'd taped to my returned gift weeks before. "Love the thought, just doesn't match the vibe of the party. Maybe next time." That had been it. 4 years of love and design sensibility dismissed for not matching the vibe. She didn't need my help. She needed a servant who wouldn't ask to be seen. Danae called around 9. I answered on speaker while folding laundry. "She's trending, and not the good kind." "I know." "You didn't even post today, and she's sinking." I paused. I stopped holding up what didn't hold me. She was silent. Then, "That's the coldest line I've ever heard. You're terrifying when you're calm." I laughed quietly, not bitter, not triumphant, just clear. Jolene didn't reply to the invoice, but for the first time in years, she couldn't ignore it either. A week passed, then 2. The noise faded. Online threads lost momentum. PR buzz cooled. Jolene's name stopped trending, but not before the damage solidified. I returned to my usual routine. Coffee in the morning, work during the day, dinner with myself in quiet peace. Then came the envelope. Cream-colored, thick paper. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. I sat at the table for a moment, envelope resting untouched in my hand, like it held more weight than it should. Inside, a handwritten letter. Every curve of every letter was hers. I see it now. I let the spotlight blind me to what mattered. I don't expect a reply, but I am sorry. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I read it once, folded it back neatly, and slid it into a drawer beside spare batteries and a broken watch. Things that used to matter. A few days later, Danae and I were at a small brunch hosted by a local businesswomen's group. Portland sunshine filtered through the patio umbrellas. That's when I saw Malik. He looked the same. Pressed shirt, confident stride. Too polished, too easy. He caught my eye, hesitated, then walked over, holding 2 glasses. "Hey, it's been a while." I nodded. "Sure has." He smiled like he expected more. I didn't give it. Danae placed her hand lightly on my back. I turned to her, ignoring Malik as he lingered another beat, then walked away. It didn't sting. It didn't even echo. He'd become just another chapter I didn't need to reread. Later that afternoon, I opened a DM from Lauren, one of our distant cousins. "I never said anything back then, but I saw how they treated you. You didn't deserve it. You made me look at the family differently." I stared at her message longer than I thought I would, then typed back, "Thank you. That means more than you know." I hadn't posted in weeks, but the silence no longer felt like holding my breath. It felt like breath itself. I kept the invoice in a folder on my laptop, still marked voided. The matching glassware I once gifted? It now sat on my own shelf, right next to my wine glasses. I used it last night while watching a movie. It felt right, like I'd finally claimed something back. I didn't need to burn the bridge, I just stopped rebuilding it. Sometimes, healing doesn't look like a reunion. It looks like choosing silence over spectacle, like walking away without slamming the door, because you finally know you never needed to be in that house to begin with. Looking back, I don't regret speaking up. I regret waiting so long to do it. To anyone out there who's ever felt like the background character in their own story, I want you to know this. You don't have to wait for permission to reclaim your place. You are not too sensitive. You're aware. You're loyal. You're powerful when you're clear. We often protect dysfunction in the name of family, but truth is, real love doesn't demand silence. Real connection doesn't require invisibility. You can choose peace without tolerating disrespect. And maybe that invoice was never about money. Maybe it was about value, and finally learning to charge what you're worth. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been treated like a support act in your own life? What would you put on your voided invoice to someone who took you for granted? Let me know in the comments. I'm reading every word. If this story resonated with you, even a little, drop a 1 in the comments, or tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't, tell me why. Let's talk. This is a space for real voices, not just perfect endings. And hey, don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories like this one. We've got more truth, more healing, and more voices ready to be heard. Hit that bell so you never miss when the next story drops. Thanks for staying with me till the end. I see you now, and I hope you see yourself too. Hi, I'm Tamara, and what you're about to hear isn't just about a launch party gone wrong. My parents took the company I built, my dream, and handed it to my brother like it was his birthright. They rewrote the guest list. They cut my name from the press. And the worst part? They smiled, like it was nothing. I stood backstage, watching him take credit for everything I created. But what really broke me? It wasn't the applause he got. It was realizing they never planned for me to shine. So I took the mic, and I told the truth. But what happened after? That, you'll have to see for yourself. I was halfway through my second coffee when I saw the article. It had landed in my inbox sometime before dawn, forwarded by an old college friend with the subject line, "Your company made TechSpark." For a brief second, my heart actually fluttered. TechSpark was big in Boulder. Getting featured meant people in the startup ecosystem were finally noticing me, noticing TechSense. I clicked the link. By the time the headline loaded, my hand had already turned cold around the coffee mug. Dillard family launches promising AI venture, led by Romy Dillard. I blinked, scanned the byline, read it again. Then I scrolled, paragraph after paragraph of polished praise. Charismatic. Visionary. A bold new voice in emotional AI. Not once did my name appear. Not as co-founder, not as developer, not as anything. It was like I didn't exist. I minimized the browser tab and pulled up the business registration I'd saved on my desktop. The name was still there. TechSense LLC, founded by Tamara Wozniak, with a sudden, quiet addition. Right beside mine, in equal font weight, Romy Dillard. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just stared at it and whispered, "How long?" I called the Colorado Business Registry, played it cool. "Just verifying corporate structure updates," I said. The woman on the other end was kind, efficient. She told me the co-founder update had been submitted 3 weeks ago. Filed through my father's firm. No signature from me required. Of course not. Not when it was family. I let out a breath, long and slow. I was used to being rewritten, erased, replaced. It started in Iowa. Back when we lived in Des Moines, I was the older child, the quiet achiever, as my mom liked to call it when guests were around. But really, I was more like the invisible daughter, the one who followed the rules, the one who gave up her room at age 11 when Romy needed space to express himself. I moved downstairs next to the laundry room. No one asked. They just swapped my things while I was at school. I still remember coming home and seeing my bed shoved up against the utility sink. "Sweetie," my mom said without looking up, "you're more adaptable. Don't make it a thing." And that became the family motto. Don't make it a thing. Romy was the star. He painted on walls, hummed loudly through dinner, made up plays, and forced us to watch. When I came home with a first-place science trophy, Dad barely glanced at it. But when Romy came home with a D+ in music class and a creative note from his teacher, they bought him a new keyboard. By high school, it was clear. He was the heart. I was the hands. It wasn't just favoritism. It was institutionalized. Our family photos always had Romy in the middle. I was either cropped at the edge or missing entirely. At school, more than once, people asked if I was Romy's cousin. My mom never corrected them. When I got into University of Colorado Boulder on a partial scholarship, I was ecstatic. But my dad? He just looked over his glasses and said, "We'll have to see how that fits in with Romy's summer program in LA." I took out loans, lived in a sublet with no central heat, ate oatmeal for dinner for 2 semesters straight, built a life one spreadsheet at a time, and yet, somehow, when I built something from the ground up, when TechSense went from a late-night coding hobby to a viable beta-stage platform, it wasn't my success anymore. It was a Dillard family venture. Of course it was. The call came 2 months ago, my dad. "Sweetheart, Romy's getting good traction on social. You should think about making him more visible. He's a great communicator. You focus on the logic, he handles the optics." I had paused, then said, "You want him to be the face of the company I built?" His response? "We're all in this together." No, we weren't. I had been alone when I filed the paperwork, alone when I begged for my first investor meeting, alone in every cafe pitch session I booked off Craigslist leads, alone when the first beta client ghosted me, and alone when I got the second one to say yes. Only 2 people ever believed in me from the start. My grandparents, Mira and Eldon. They didn't know tech, but they knew how to look you in the eye and say, "We trust your judgment." That counted for more than I realized back then. Now, sitting in my apartment in Boulder, fingers numb and a sour taste creeping up the back of my throat, I opened the link again. There it was. TechSense, the future of AI emotion, driven by Romy Dillard. A family name, a borrowed legacy, my work. The apartment buzzed with quiet, just the sound of my kettle switching off in the background and a dog barking somewhere down the street. I didn't move. My phone vibrated. A message from Mila, the same college friend. "This is so cool. When did Romy start working with you?" My reply was slow. He didn't. But maybe that wasn't the truth anymore. Maybe he was working with me, around me. Over me. The worst part? I wasn't shocked. Not really. Somewhere deep down, I had always known. That room they took from me at 11 was just the first thing. This company might be the last thing they try to take, but they weren't going to get away with it. Not this time. The sun had slipped behind the flatirons, casting the city in that golden haze that only lasts 10 minutes a day. I stood in the kitchen, stirring a lukewarm cup of chamomile tea I hadn't touched in hours. I wasn't tired, just drained, like someone had taken the air out of me and left me standing half alive. That's when I found it. An old voicemail from Dad buried deep in my inbox. One of those that never transcribed right. I tapped to play it. His voice came through, crackly and casual. "Hey, kiddo. Just wanted to say, we've decided to use some of the retirement savings to help Romy with his creative launch. You understand, right? He needs visibility. He's got talent." He paused, like waiting for my nod. "Anyway, don't worry about it. You're doing fine." I stared at nothing. The spoon kept spinning on its own. Visibility? I needed groceries, a working laptop, a few months of rent to keep TechSense alive. But Romy needed visibility. I closed the audio. The silence afterward was louder than the message. It wasn't new. I used to think it was bad timing. But patterns tell the truth. Senior year, I had 3 college acceptance letters. I remember sitting in the living room, cat curled by the heater, clutching them like tickets to somewhere better. They barely looked. "Well," Dad said, tapping a pen on the armrest, "we'll see what's left after Romy's tuition." He was off to a performing arts school in Chicago. They paid for a 1-bedroom high-rise, a vocal coach, even leased him a car. I commuted to community college, took the 6:45 bus, ate from vending machines, worked evenings at a bookstore. When I transferred to CU Boulder, no one celebrated. They asked how I'd cover tuition, how many hours I could work. Still, I graduated magna cum laude. No one came to the ceremony. I wasn't angry, just exhausted. That kind of tired that settles into your bones and never leaves. A year later, my grandparents visited. We sat on the back porch, sweating through an Iowa summer. Mira slid an envelope toward me. "Just a little something to get you started." $2,000. I didn't spend it for months. I kept it sealed in a fireproof folder. That's what launched TechSense, my LLC, the domain, a freelance designer. Quiet money, no family conditions, no strings, unlike anything from Galen. A ping pulled me back. Mila again. This time a video, no caption. I clicked. Meet the creative genius behind TechSense. The thumbnail, Romy, in front of my old laptop, wearing my brand colors, talking like he built the whole thing. It was a clean 2-minute promo, Romy pitching his vision of emotional AI. He walked through the office I paid for, sat at my desk, the voiceover. "We believe in reshaping how humans interact with machines." We? At the end, he dropped my name. "Tam? She's great with back-end stuff. Makes the tech run like magic." Like I was some freelancer he brought in. I replayed it, twice. No, it wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Reframing, rewriting. The comments were worse. "Wow, he's brilliant. Didn't his sister start this? Or am I wrong?" No one corrected them. Not my parents. Especially not them. I checked our company's pinned social post. It was the same video, shared by Dad. Proud of what Romy's building with TechSense? Something inside me cracked. I closed the laptop, sat still. I thought about deleting everything, shutting it down, but Mira's voice rose up in my head, sharp and clear. "You don't walk away from what you built just because someone else's name is on the door." She was right. I opened the laptop again, hovered over the report button. Didn't click. Because maybe it was time to do more than just click. I barely slept. After closing my laptop, I paced the apartment for hours. The video looped in my mind, not the words, but the audacity. His face on my work, his voice calling it ours. Eventually, I sat down and reopened the email from the conference organizers. TechSense, Disrupting Emotional AI, featured speaker, Tamara Wozniak, 2 p.m., Denver Convention Center, Main Stage B. Or at least it had said that. By the time I arrived, everything had changed. It was cool outside, but my palms were damp as I stepped through the glass doors. Inside, coffee carts, chatter, investors in clusters. I kept my badge half hidden under my jacket. At registration, the volunteer beamed. "You're with TechSense? Romy already checked in. You're listed as contributor. Need help finding your lounge?" Contributor. I forced a tight smile. "No, I've got it." I pulled up the event app. There it was, 2 p.m., Main Stage B. Empathy in AI, A new era of expression. Speaker, Romy Dillard. Lead Communications, TechSense. My name? At the bottom like a footnote. Research contributor, T. Wozniak. I headed backstage. The media crew looked up. You the slide editor? Someone asked, holding out a tablet. Just synced Romy's changes. His what? He turned the screen. Gone was my talk on ethical data modeling. In its place, pastel slides, buzzwords, Romy's face in full-screen confidence. Title, Feeling the Future. Romy Dillard on Intuitive AI. It felt like a punch to the ribs. I stepped away and called Dad. He answered quickly. Tamara, you at the venue? What is this? I asked. Why is he giving my keynote? Dad sighed like I was overreacting. Sweetheart, don't turn this into a scene. Romy's just better at presenting. You're great with the technical stuff. This is about optics. This is my company. No, it's the family's company, he said. Let him take the spotlight. You've always handled the back end. Always. I hung up. The backstage monitor ticked down. 4 minutes to showtime. I peeked through the curtain. Romy stood center stage, mic in place, blazer sharp and loud. He looked confident, practiced. He waved to someone up front, then flashed that polished grin. The crowd loved it. I asked the stage manager for the final slide deck. He handed me a tablet. Every bullet I'd written had been gutted, swapped with Romy's pet terms. Data feels, human synergy, future presence. Even my closing line, something I'd scribbled at 3 a.m. months ago, was now under his name. When machines understand us emotionally, we understand ourselves better. He hadn't even heard it until 2 weeks ago. The MC took the stage. Please welcome Romy Dillard. The applause came like a wave. I stayed frozen. He launched into his talk with charm and swagger, tossing out buzzwords like candy. The audience laughed, clapped. He gestured to the logo behind him, my logo, and said, This journey began because I saw a need, so I built something. I felt heat behind my eyes. I built the prototype, coded every line, conducted surveys, filed paperwork, scrimped for months while Romy chased acting gigs in Chicago. Now he stood under lights I fought to reach. A man in front of me leaned over and whispered to his colleague, Visionary guy, I'm watching his stock. He's going places. His stock? His vision? I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. This wasn't oversight. This was erasure. Not quietly, not behind the scenes, right here, in public, on the stage that was supposed to be mine. The ovation when he finished was thunderous. Cameras flashed. Romy beamed. I turned away and clenched the printed schedule in my hand until the edges dug into my skin. I didn't cry, but something inside me broke, clean, sharp, and final. And one thought echoed louder than the applause. They weren't just rewriting slides, they were rewriting me. 2 mornings had passed since the Denver conference, but the sting in my chest hadn't dulled. If anything, it had sharpened. The sting had turned into a stone, something heavy and cold sitting just beneath my ribs. I had gone to sleep restless and woken up worse. I reached for my phone out of habit, not intention, and immediately regretted it. There were over a dozen new notifications, push alerts, emails, and Slack messages from our junior devs. Most were about one thing. A headline blinked at the top of my screen. Creative mind Romy Dillard pioneers emotional AI. TechSense leads a new wave. I sat up straighter, thumb frozen mid-scroll. One after another, tech media outlets had picked up the same story. Slightly altered titles, but the same angle. Same hero, same narrative. Romy. I scrolled down the first piece, looking for any mention of me. Nothing. No co-founder bio, not even a footnote in the About section. Not a single sentence acknowledged that I had conceptualized, designed, and developed every line of our core architecture. I refreshed the next article. Same result. I sat back in my chair, phone balanced on my knee, the buzzing in my ears making it hard to hear anything else. For a moment, I wondered if I'd made all of this up. If maybe I was just background noise in my own story. The woman behind the curtain, never meant to take a bow. I closed the articles and opened Slack. Zara, my assistant, had sent a brief message. Hey, I didn't authorize this. You should see where it came from. I'm checking headers now. I called her immediately. Who sent the press kit? She didn't even greet me, just launched into it. Tam, It was your dad. The original blast went out from his firm's media email. That's why it bypassed our approval queue. It looks like he sent it directly to his media contacts. I stood up, walking toward the window like pacing would bring oxygen back into my lungs. And what exactly was in it? A branding doc, new color specs, ones we haven't signed off on, and a paragraph listing Romy as Vision Director of TechSense. I almost laughed. We don't have a vision director. Zara paused. I know. I ended the call without saying goodbye. I needed air. I grabbed my jacket and left the building. The late morning sun was already high over Boulder's skyline, casting hard shadows that made everything look too bright, too fake. I walked a full block before stopping at a coffee shop I hadn't visited since last year. I didn't even go in. I just stood outside, staring blankly at the menu board. I didn't want caffeine. I wanted clarity, but I got neither. Instead, my phone buzzed again. A message from Toby Renner, one of our earliest investors. Super pumped for the launch party next week. Just saw the invite. Romy hosting? Sounds slick. Attached was a screenshot of the digital invitation. Hosted by Romy Dillard. Featuring the story behind the brand special contributor, Tamara Wozniak. I froze. It felt like the ground shifted under me, but no one else noticed. The woman behind me in line kept talking about almond milk. The guy beside her asked about a gluten-free muffin. The world went on like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. The event was mine. I had planned it for months, booked the venue, curated the guest list, designed the entire program around my launch roadmap. And now I was just the special contributor? Special contributor. Like I'd wandered in off the street with a few ideas and got lucky enough to be included. I walked back to the office in a trance. I didn't hear the street noise. I didn't even remember the crosswalk. I just moved, one foot in front of the other, because if I stopped, I'd start shaking. Back inside TechSense HQ, I took the elevator up alone. When I stepped out onto our floor, I made a beeline to my office, shut the door behind me, and locked it. I called my father. He picked up, voice calm, like we were discussing dinner plans. Hey Tamara, everything okay? You sent out a launch invite with Romy listed as host. A pause. Then, he's the better speaker. This is about optics, not ownership. I clenched the armrest of my chair. It's my launch. We're not replacing you, he said, just reframing the narrative. He's the face. You're the foundation. You didn't even ask me. You would have said no. He said it like a fact, not an accusation, like that justified every lie. It's still your party, sweetie, he added gently, like I was a 5-year-old sulking about a balloon. You'll be there. You'll speak. You're the brains, not the brand. Don't take it so personally. There was a long silence on my end. Too long. Then I spoke, voice low but certain. That's not reframing, Dad. That's rewriting. Another silence. I didn't wait for his reply. I ended the call. I stared at my monitor, jaw tight. The cursor blinked on a blank document labeled launch_speech_final.docs final. What a joke. I opened it, scanned line by line. Every place Romy's name had been added, I deleted it. Every anecdote he inserted, I removed. Every moment he tried to steal, I took back. One keystroke at a time, they wanted to rewrite me. But I had the final edit. By the time Friday rolled in, the countdown felt personal. 5 days to launch. 5 days until they either heard me or tried to silence me again. My edits were done. My speech was mine. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had some grip on the wheel. That illusion lasted less than 3 hours. My phone rang as I was reviewing logistics with Zara. The name flashing on the screen made my stomach dip. Lori Hampton, one of our largest early-stage investors, and a woman whose opinion could sway half a dozen others. I picked up, adjusting my voice into something polite but unreadable. Lori, hi. She jumped in, cheerful as ever. Tamara, I just wanted to say how thrilled I am for next week. I've been telling people about Romy nonstop. You've done such a great job backing him. Backing him? My pulse kicked up. I'm sorry, what? The launch party, she said. It'll be great to meet Romy in person. He seems brilliant. Natural charisma. Founder material. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a sharp scrape. Lori, I'm hosting the event. It's my company. A pause. Soft, awkward, but unmistakably patronizing. Oh, that's strange. The invite says he's the founder. It took everything in me not to snap. Instead, I smiled into the phone like she could hear it. I'll have Zara follow up with the corrected version. Thanks for flagging that. When I ended the call, my hand was shaking. I stared at the screen until Zara's voice pulled me back. You okay? She asked. No, I said. Not even a little. Later that afternoon, Mila stopped by the office. We hadn't seen each other in months. Old college roommate turned freelance UX designer. She was in town for a client pitch and wanted to catch up. She looked around the space, impressed. Tam, this is wild. I mean, from your apartment floor to here? Unreal. I tried to smile. Yeah, it's been a lot. She wandered past the whiteboards. So, you and Romy. I didn't even know you two were working together until I saw the video. Crazy how he ended up in AI, right? I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Well, he's the idea guy, right? You're like the operations mastermind? That was it. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, but like a small, clean thread finally giving out after years of tension. No, Mila, I said, voice low and even. I'm the founder. Romy didn't build this. He didn't write one line of code. He didn't pitch investors. He didn't sit in client calls or sleep under that desk during the first 2 months. She blinked, surprised. Oh, sorry. I guess the video made it seem... I know what the video made it seem like. She didn't respond, just nodded, awkward and quiet, and left a few minutes later. I walked back into my office and shut the door again. And then, I rewrote everything. I pulled up the event script and stripped it clean. No Romy, no fatherly interjections, just me, my voice, my timeline, my team. I rescheduled investor meetings and marked them as private one-on-ones. I handpicked the top 5 supporters, the ones who knew what I had built before anyone cared, and blocked an hour with each of them before the event. Then, I picked up the phone and called my mother. It went straight to voicemail. She called back 20 minutes later. I didn't wait for pleasantries. If Dad keeps pushing this, I will go public, and this time I won't give anyone a heads up. She was silent for a beat. Then, Tamara, do what you need to do. That answer was worse than a fight. It wasn't defiance. It was surrender. It meant she knew and chose to stay silent. After I hung up, I sent Zara the backup protocol. We had talked about this 2 months ago, half joking. Now I wasn't smiling. Activate the contingency, I typed. Backup domains, alternate press list, start prepping the livestream gear. She replied within 60 seconds. Copy that. It's yours. We're ready. I exhaled, finally feeling like I wasn't alone. The sun dipped behind the mountains as I pulled into the parking lot of the launch venue for a final walkthrough. The building looked different now, less like a dream, more like a challenge. It was beautiful. Sleek industrial glass, low-lit wood accents. We'd booked it almost a year ago. Back then, it was about celebration. Now it felt like a battle line. I stood on the sidewalk and stared at the entrance for a long time. In the distance, people were laughing as they exited a nearby brewery. It reminded me of a life I used to crave. Simple. Invisible. But that version of me wouldn't have made it this far. The automatic doors whooshed open, triggered by my stillness. Inside, the space was empty. Silent. I took one slow breath and whispered to myself, if they still push me aside after this, I won't be the one holding back. Evening draped itself over Boulder like a silk curtain, quiet but full of tension. I hadn't slept much the night before, and the nerves didn't ease when I arrived at the venue 3 hours early. The catering crew was setting up hors d'oeuvres near the back entrance. Zara was already inside, double-checking tech, checking off names. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Low ambient lighting, elegant floral arrangements, name tags lined up neatly in alphabetical order. Guests would walk into this event thinking they were about to witness a milestone for TechSense. They had no idea it was a battleground. I stayed in the green room for most of the hour before go time, pacing, breathing, reviewing my script again even though I knew it by heart. At exactly 6:55 p.m., the MC stepped onto the stage to a polite round of applause. His voice carried easily through the room. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight as we celebrate the extraordinary rise of a company poised to reshape AI as we know it. I stood just behind the side curtain, hands clasped tightly behind my back. The MC continued, "And now please welcome Galen Dillard, proud father of our visionary leader." I froze. My breath caught. Galen? I looked around the green room. No warning, no run sheet showing that name, no slide update, nothing. But there he was, already striding up the steps onto the stage like he owned it. Right behind him, Rami in a tailored navy blazer, hair gelled back, smile confident. And then Galen spoke. This is Rami's moment, his vision, his future. TechSense was just an idea once, and Rami gave it the voice and purpose it needed. We are proud, so proud to stand behind him tonight. Applause swelled. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I started walking, fast, toward the AV table when I heard something from backstage that stopped me cold. It was Dylan, our event coordinator. I hadn't noticed him on the phone. "No, we're almost done finalizing the paperwork," he said. "Galen already approved the transfer. Romy will get the 51%. It's clean. Trust ownership protects them from board disputes." My feet stopped moving. The noise of the room faded. They weren't just stealing my moment. They were stealing my company. Legally. I stepped into the shadows behind the stage, heart thudding so loud it drowned the crowd. Dylan looked up and saw me. His eyes widened. "Tamara." I cut him off with one sentence. "Not if I speak first." And I stepped out. The light hit me like a slap, but I didn't blink. I walked straight up to the podium, past Galen, past Romy, who looked stunned for the first time in years. Someone in the audience murmured. A few cameras turned toward me, unsure of what was happening. I didn't wait for permission. I took the mic. The applause had died down. Good. They'd need silence to hear this. "My name is Tamara Wozniak," I said steady, "and I built TechSense from the ground up. I designed every line of the original software. I pitched the first clients from my living room table. I drained my savings account to pay for version 1. And tonight, you're sitting here under false pretenses, thinking you're celebrating someone else." The room hushed. Behind me, Galen took a step forward, but I turned just enough to warn him, "Not now." I looked out again. A sea of confused, blinking eyes. Colleagues, investors, family friends, and Romy, standing there, looking like he couldn't decide whether to smile or run. "I'm not here to fight for credit. I'm not here to beg for space. I'm here because this whole circus of narrative swapping, of names moved around like chess pieces, has gone too far." I held up one of the glossy investor packets they'd passed out near the door. On the front, Romy's face, my brand. I'm not a footnote in my own company. I'm not the quiet genius behind the curtain. I'm the founder. And I won't be erased to make someone else more palatable. A heavy silence fell. You could hear the soft click of someone putting down their champagne glass. "And let's be very clear," I added, my voice growing harder. "No amount of title changes or family backroom deals will change who built this, or who leads it." I set the mic down, and I walked off. Behind me, no applause. But no one left either, which meant they were listening. I was halfway to the green room when Galen caught up to me. His tone was low, almost hissing. "If you embarrass this family again like that, you'll regret it." I stopped, turned. "You should have said that," I said softly, "before you tried to erase me." And I kept walking. The launch event wasn't over, not by a long shot. But the moment they tried to write me out of my own story, that's when I took the pen back. I didn't go back into the main ballroom. After the mic drop, the air outside the curtain was thick, like walking through steam. I needed oxygen. Still gripping the folded edges of my speech in one hand, I ducked into the side lounge tucked behind the cocktail bar. Dim lighting, velvet couches, the kind of space meant for donors or VIPs to decompress. Except I didn't feel like a VIP. I sat, alone, a glass of water in front of me, untouched. Somewhere behind the wall, the party resumed. Music, laughter, the pop of a champagne cork. None of it reached me. The silence in the lounge was sharper than any applause I didn't get. Romy had vanished. I hadn't seen him once since I left the stage. No apology, no attempt, not that I expected one. The door creaked open. I looked up. Galen stepped in, followed by Judith. He was fuming, his nostrils flaring the way they did when I was 13, and asked why Romy got a new iPad when I still used a hand-me-down. "You made your point," he said, voice clipped, "but don't think there won't be consequences." I leaned back, calm on the outside. "There already were. You just didn't notice them because they happened to me." He didn't flinch. "You humiliated this family tonight," he continued, stepping closer. "You made a spectacle out of your ego." "My ego? You mean the company I built?" "No, I mean your refusal to be part of the team." I laughed, quiet and bitter. "By team, you mean the people who lie, edit, and take without asking?" "I mean family." He said it like a brand, not a bond. "I've done with this," Galen snapped. "You're out. Out of the will. Out of everything. Don't expect a call. As far as I'm concerned, you're not my daughter." The room didn't spin. It didn't shake. I didn't cry, I just sat very still. Judith was next to him, silent. Her hands clutched the strap of her purse like it could anchor her to something solid. "You really mean that?" I asked him. He nodded once. Clean. Like a man checking off a task. Then another voice entered the room. Deep, slow, familiar. "You don't speak for the whole family, Galen." My grandparents stood in the doorway, Eldon in a beige sweater vest, Mira in navy with silver buttons down the front. They looked small but unshakable. Eldon stepped forward. "Then let us say this clearly in front of witnesses. We already changed the will 3 months ago. Everything we own goes to Tamara," Mira added. "Not a cent to anyone else." Galen spun toward them. "You can't do that." "We did," Eldon replied, unblinking. "After the 3rd board meeting we weren't invited to, after the interviews where Romy spoke about his vision, after Judith called us and said Tamara was overreacting again." Mira's gaze didn't waver. "We watched, we listened, and we decided." The silence was louder than any fight. Judith looked at me then, really looked. Her expression was unreadable. I didn't fill the space. I let her sit in it. "Why did you let him erase me?" I asked. Her voice cracked. "Because I didn't know how to choose," she whispered. "And because you always figured it out. You were the one who didn't need hand-holding or reassurance or help." I waited. "And I thought," she added, tears forming, "maybe you didn't need me." I stood slowly, walked closer until I was just a few feet from her. "I didn't need you to save me," I said. "I needed you to stand next to me." Judith opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing else came. The room emptied. Galen left first, shoulders rigid, jaw tight. Judith followed, pausing only once to glance back. And then it was just me, Zara, and the echo of everything that had been said. Zara walked in silently and wrapped her arms around me. No words, just warmth. Outside, the Colorado night had turned brisk. I stepped out, breathing in the crisp air that smelled faintly of pine and earth. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest didn't crush. It anchored. We walked toward the parking lot, me and the few people who hadn't turned away. Then I saw him, Romy, standing near the valet, alone. Arms crossed, face pale, eyes locked on me. His jaw twitched. He didn't say a word. I didn't either. He wanted the spotlight, but he didn't expect the firestorm. By the time I walked through my apartment door that night, my heels ached and my mind felt raw. I dropped my bag on the entry bench, peeled off my jacket, and stood there in silence, surrounded by dim lighting and the soft hum of the fridge. I didn't need to replay everything. I'd lived it. My voice, the tremor in Romy's face, the way the audience had sat still as truth cut through pretense. I showered, slept, barely, and woke just after 6 a.m. to the buzz of my phone. 32 new emails. Most subject lines blurred together until one stopped me. Bradshaw Capital. Ultimatum enclosed. My breath stalled. I opened it. The message was short, precise. Per recent public clarity and performance, we require the immediate removal of Romy Dillard as a public-facing representative of TechSense. Should this not occur, Bradshaw Capital will suspend funding effective immediately. No hedging, no perhaps or discussion points. They weren't asking. They were drawing a line. I set the phone down slowly. The quiet of my kitchen felt like armor. 2 hours later, I walked into the TechSense boardroom in downtown Boulder. Polished glass, cool morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Zara had already set out the presentation packets and coffee. She nodded at me once, confident, assured. Across the table, the board, 4 voting members. Romy, seated at the far end, looked like he hadn't slept, his face blotchy, eyes glassy, no sign of Galen. Judith sat beside Romy, lips pursed, hands folded tightly on her lap. I stood at the head of the table, no PowerPoint, just words. "Thank you for being here," I began. "I'll be brief." I laid out the facts, the false narrative, the unauthorized press releases, the attempted power shift via trust documents. I placed a copy of the Bradshaw email in front of each board member. Then I looked them straight in the eye. You cannot build trust on illusion, and I won't let mine be traded for appearances. For a full 5 seconds, the only sound was the clock ticking. Then Board Chair Marla Sandin nodded once and said, "Motion to re-establish Tamara Wozniak as sole public and legal representative of TechSense, effective immediately." "Seconded," came another voice. "Approved," said the third. Unanimous. I sat down as the resolution was finalized. Romy didn't speak. His shoulders sagged. Judith leaned over and whispered something I couldn't hear. He didn't look up. By that afternoon, the TechSense media team had already issued the correction. Statement from founder and CEO Tamara Wozniak. It hit every major tech outlet by the evening. Forbes, TechCrunch, local stations. I didn't gloat. Instead, I answered only one interview request from a quiet podcast that championed women in leadership. I told them, when people try to rewrite you out of your own story, you don't scream louder. You write clearer. Within 48 hours, Romy deleted his Twitter, then Instagram, then LinkedIn, one by one, like he was scrubbing away evidence of someone he didn't want to be anymore. Late that night, my phone lit up. Judith. I stared at the screen. I answered. There was a long pause before she spoke. "Will you come by the house sometime?" Her voice was thin. Not weak, but like someone trying to reach across a distance they'd created. I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Maybe," I said, "but not now." A soft exhale came through the line. She didn't argue. The next ping was a text from Mira. "You did it, baby, and you did it with grace." No lecture, no instructions, just love in the quietest way that mattered. I sat at my desk around 10 p.m., alone in the warm glow of my office lamp. The launch party was over. The fallout was settling. But I wasn't empty. In front of me, my laptop blinked. A new file. next_chapter_idea.docs. I hovered my fingers over the keyboard. Outside, the night air curled against the window. But inside, it felt steady. I whispered to the stillness. I didn't burn bridges. I built one, far away from them. The morning light had a different kind of warmth now, not softer exactly, just less sharp around the edges. It had been almost a month since the launch party, since the mic, the fallout, and the fractured parts of my life being laid bare under stage lights. These days, I started mornings in a co-working space across town. It wasn't glamorous. 2 tall plants, humming Wi-Fi, a coffee machine that sputtered more than brewed. But it was mine. My mornings had become a ritual. I brewed peppermint tea instead of drowning in caffeine. I sat by the window, notebook open, even if the words didn't come easily. That morning I scribbled just one line. Closure doesn't mean agreement. It means I stopped bleeding. That was enough. I hadn't returned to the TechSense main office yet, not because I was afraid, but because I was busy building the version of leadership I wanted to live by. Quiet, honest, unbending. Every Sunday, I drove across town to my grandparents' place. Mira's front garden always had something blooming, no matter the season. Eldon always wore the same sweater, no matter the weather. We didn't talk about the party anymore, or Romy, or my parents. Instead, it was tomatoes and taxes, the dogwood tree out front, his old car that he swore still ran better than anything off a lot today. One afternoon after we finished lunch and Mira handed me a fresh jar of plum jam, she said, "You know, we didn't leave you the estate because of money." I looked up, surprised. She smiled, folding a napkin. "We did it because you chose dignity when you had every reason not to." I didn't say anything. I just reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Judith hadn't called since the night of the board meeting. Galen hadn't either. But I heard things. A former family friend mentioned Galen was skipping social events, didn't show at the regional gala, hadn't renewed his membership at the golf club. And Romy? He launched a podcast, then a YouTube channel. I watched one episode. The views were low, the comments were worse. He'd deleted the channel by week 3. And strangely, I didn't feel vindicated. No pride, no satisfaction. Just a sense of distance, like watching someone else's story through glass. Then one morning, my phone buzzed. Judith. Her name blinked up from an unsaved number. The message was short. I still don't know how to be a mother to you, but I hope someday I can try. I reread it twice. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. A few weeks later, on a bright Saturday, I found myself wandering Pearl Street. The street performers were out, a violinist playing near the ice cream stand. The breeze carried the smell of coffee and something grilled. I was halfway through the block when a woman stopped me. "You're her, right?" she said, eyes lighting up. "From that AI event, the one who spoke up." I paused. "Yeah, that was me." She smiled wide. "That was brave. It meant something." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. She walked away, and I stood there, not proud, just present, whole. Back home, I opened my laptop. A blank document stared back at me. New_project_outline.docs. This one wouldn't be built on reaction. It wouldn't be about proving anything. This one was just mine. I leaned back, stretching as the light shifted across the floor. My reflection in the dark screen wasn't someone waiting for permission anymore. I had been erased, yes, but I rewrote myself. And the new version? She was quieter, stronger, still scarred, but no longer wounded. I closed the laptop and said it out loud, just once. I used to think family defined me. Now I know. I get to decide what defines me. And now that you've heard my story, from silence to speaking up, from being erased to rewriting myself, let me leave you with this. I used to think loyalty meant staying quiet, that family meant sacrificing your truth, that being strong meant not rocking the boat. But strength, real strength, is knowing when to draw a line and say, this ends with me. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own home, if you've ever watched your hard work become someone else's spotlight, if you've ever stayed quiet to keep the peace, even when it cost you your voice, then please hear me now. You are not selfish for wanting credit. You are not dramatic for needing boundaries, and you are never wrong for reclaiming your story, especially when others tried to write you out of it. This isn't just about business. It's about self-worth. It's about learning that your value isn't up for debate. Not by family, not by culture, not by silence. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. You don't need their permission to live fully. You just need your own. So let me ask you, have you ever been in Tamara's shoes? What would you have done at that launch party? Or better yet, what would your message be to someone still stuck in that silence? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story hit home for you. Tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know what part of the world or the US you're in. And if this wasn't your kind of story, that's okay too. Let me know what you think and what kinds of truths you're living through. And hey, if stories like this speak to you, if they help you feel seen or understood, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Because your voice deserves a space too. Thanks for listening. Hi there, I'm Darlie. I drove 18 hours through nonstop rain, barely slept, barely ate, just to surprise my parents for their 45th wedding anniversary. I showed up with a handmade gift and their favorite cake. But when I walked through that door, no one smiled. They hadn't just forgotten me. They'd erased me. A sister who lied, a mother who stayed silent, a gift tossed in a trunk. And that was just the beginning. What do you do when your own family pretends you don't exist? Would you still stay or walk away for good? I hadn't planned on driving 18 hours straight. Hell, I hadn't even packed a change of clothes when I left Portland. But when I saw that every flight to Sarasota was grounded, storm warnings screaming across every app on my phone, I threw my raincoat in the back seat, grabbed a cooler with the cake and left. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I wanted it to be a surprise, a gesture, something big, something that said, "I'm still part of this family." The windshield wipers barely kept up with the rain as I crossed state after state. Gas station coffee, bathroom sinks that barely worked, highway signs blurred by water and exhaustion. I drove with my hands clenched on the wheel and my heart clenched even tighter. The whole way down, I pictured Mom's face lighting up, Dad's voice cracking just a little when he saw me. Maybe even Terry Jo, my sister, giving me one of those eye rolls that secretly meant you did good. But what I got was silence. When I finally pulled into the driveway at midnight, the house was glowing with warmth, lights in every room, cars lining the curb. Laughter floated out from inside like a scene from some Hallmark movie. I stood in the rain for a moment, my shoes sinking into the grass, holding the box with the cake I'd risked hydroplaning for. My jeans were soaked through. I didn't even bother ringing the doorbell. I walked straight in. The room hushed, like I was a stranger who just barged into the wrong party. Terry Jo turned from the kitchen island, wine glass in hand, eyes wide. "Darlie?" Mom blinked at me, surprised. "Oh, I thought you weren't coming." I looked around the living room. Balloons, flowers, a huge banner above the fireplace. 45 years of love, celebrated by family. Everything looked perfect. Except none of it included me. My throat was dry, my mouth trying to form words that wouldn't make things worse. I smiled instead, just enough to hide the sting. "Surprise!" Nobody clapped, nobody moved, just awkward glances and mumbled, "Wow, you made it," as if I were someone's +1 they forgot to RSVP for. I set the cake down on the counter. Terry Jo raised a brow. "You drove?" she asked, like I'd shown up on a tractor. "Flights were canceled. Thought I'd make the trip anyway," I said, trying to sound casual. Inside, I felt like my chest had caved in. "I mean, you should have let us know," she added, taking a slow sip. "We weren't exactly prepared." Like my presence was a disruption, a logistics problem. I scanned the room. There were family photos on the mantle, a looping slideshow on the TV with childhood memories, wedding anniversaries, beach vacations. I watched slide after slide pass. There was one of Terry Jo and her kids building a sandcastle with Mom and Dad, one of Wendy from next door giving Dad a big birthday hug. Even Terry Jo's ex-husband made an appearance, but not me, not a single frame. Dad walked past with a drink in hand. He patted my shoulder like he was greeting a mail carrier. "Good to see you," he muttered without stopping. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Someone behind me whispered, "Did she just show up without telling anyone?" I stood there a moment longer, listening to the glass clinking, the music, the easy laughter. None of it slowed for me. I excused myself to the guest bathroom, locked the door, stripped off my wet coat. My hands trembled as I wrung water from the hem of my jeans. I caught my reflection in the mirror, mascara smudged, hair flat from the rain. A face they didn't expect, a face they didn't include. I placed the cake, now slightly smudged, on the kitchen island. No one said thank you. I'd driven across the country, counting down the hours by state lines and truck stop coffee. For what? A nod from my dad? A side glance from my sister? Coming home wasn't supposed to feel like this. It wasn't supposed to feel like nothing. Link to next chapter. Then I saw the slide on the living room screen. The family tribute without my name or face. I stared at the slideshow looping on the living room TV. Photo after photo of smiling faces, family vacations, birthdays, graduations. My name was never spoken, and neither was my image included. It was like I had been erased with precision, like someone had gone out of their way to make sure I wouldn't be remembered. Then Wendy stepped up to the mic. Terry Jo's longtime friend, her shadow in every family function, the self-appointed MC of the evening. She cleared her throat and raised her champagne glass. "Tonight, I'm honored to speak on behalf of the family," Wendy began, her voice syrupy sweet. "And especially for Terry Jo, the daughter who's always been here, the steady heart, the one who held this family together." A ripple of applause, smiles, glasses raised. I blinked. My hands stayed at my sides. "On behalf of the family?" I didn't ask her to speak for me. "And what about the money I wired to help cover the deposit for this house 2 years ago? Or the summer I used all my PTO to help move them in? Forgotten, I guess." I slipped toward the patio door, phone in hand, pretending to scroll. A message I'd sent in the family group chat yesterday, a simple, "Almost there, hope the cake makes it intact," was gone. Deleted. Wendy brushed past me without looking up. "Didn't think you'd really show," she muttered, half under her breath. I clenched my jaw. It wasn't shock that hit me, it was clarity. Wendy wasn't surprised I came. She was disappointed. Terry Jo was in the center of it all, glowing like the matriarch in training. Mom beamed at her, arm hooked through Dad's. They looked like a complete family. I was the asterisk, the one they all silently agreed not to mention. I stepped out to the side yard, gravel crunching under my boots. I needed air, space, anything but that living room full of people pretending I wasn't there. That's when I heard it, Mom's voice, faint but clear through the open kitchen window. She was on a video call. "I know, baby," she said. "Well, at least now things can go back to normal. I didn't realize how tense it was with her around." Her words landed like a slap. My ears burned. I took a step closer to hear. Terry Jo replied, "Told you, Mom. She thrives on drama. Darlie's always been like that. She makes everything about her." I didn't flinch, didn't cry. I just stood there staring at the yard I'd helped landscape last spring. The little solar lights lining the walkway? I bought those. The "Bless This Home" sign near the porch? I painted it by hand. None of that mattered now. Inside, they toasted to family. Outside, I stood alone in the dark. I moved away from the side of the house, gravel crunching beneath each step as I made my way toward the garage. A porch light flickered overhead, casting long, warped shadows across the concrete. I wasn't sure if I needed air or just an excuse to stay away from the people who were supposed to love me. The side door to the garage was cracked open. I paused near it, ready to keep walking, until I heard my name. "Darlie," Wendy said, half laughing. "You really didn't think she'd come, right?" Inside, their voices were hushed but sharp, riding the edges of clinking wine glasses and forced giggles. Terry Jo snorted. "Honestly, I was hoping she'd get lost in the storm or something. It's been so nice around here without her." Wendy added, "Everything just flows better when she's not in the picture." My fingers curled into fists. I didn't step inside. I didn't give them the satisfaction. I just stood there listening. "She always has this need to prove something," Terry Jo went on. "It's exhausting. We finally have peace, and then, bam! She storms in like a wet warning sign." They laughed. Not the nervous kind. The kind you save for inside jokes and cruelty dressed up as truth. I stepped back, chest tight. My mind rushed to that afternoon last month, when Mom's checkup was missed, and I was the one blamed. The appointment had been scheduled on our shared family app, originally on the 10th. Then, without notice, it got moved to the 7th. Terry Jo said nothing. Mom assumed I'd dropped the ball. I'd apologized, sent a gift card to her favorite spa, called twice. No reply. Now it all made sense. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was layered, staged. They'd been setting the scene for months, slowly rewriting me out of their story. I stood there in the dark a little longer, let the sting sharpen into something clearer. Then I straightened my spine, ran a hand through my damp hair, and walked back toward the party like I belonged there, which I did. Inside, music played and people laughed, oblivious. I made my way to the drink table and poured myself a glass of red. Full. No shame. I passed Terry Jo by the fireplace. She caught my eye, lips parting slightly. "Great weather, huh?" I said evenly. She blinked. Yeah, I guess." I smiled without warmth. "Been raining for hours. Funny how things wash up during a storm." Her lips tightened. I turned and raised my glass to no one in particular. Let them wonder what I knew. I didn't need lightning to strike. The storm was already inside me. As I raised my glass and let it hover just long enough for them to wonder, the weight of something unfinished tugged at me. I stepped quietly back out to the car. Inside the trunk was a long wooden case, wrapped in craft paper and tied with twine. I'd made it months ago, Oregon maple I'd sourced from a salvage yard near the coast. I'd sanded, carved, and stained it myself, etched with my parents' wedding date and a quote Mom used to keep on the fridge. Built on love, held by grace. It was art. personal, real. I brought it inside and placed it on the gift table, nestled between a designer cheese board set and a gift bag stuffed with tissue paper and perfume. I didn't wait for applause, just walked away. Later, I circled back through the dining room. The cake was half-eaten. Balloons had started to wilt. Laughter came and went like waves, careless. The gift I'd made was gone. I scanned the table again. Nothing. I stepped outside. Cool air brushed my skin. That's when I saw her. Terry Jo slamming the trunk of her Lexus shut. My gift in her hands just seconds before. I walked up slowly. Was something wrong with it? She didn't even flinch. Oh, that? It didn't match Mom's vibe. She's doing this whole minimalist chic thing now, but maybe she'll hang it in the garage. Wendy laughed behind her, loud and sharp. Or gift it to the neighbor. What's her name? Gina? The one who sells candles out of her shed? I didn't respond, just watched the rain slide down Terry Jo's windshield. Back inside, nobody noticed I was gone. Or back. That night, I barely slept. Curled in the guest bed that smelled like cinnamon plug-ins and dust, I stared at the ceiling fan and thought about every hour I'd spent making that piece. Every evening after work, every layer of stain, every hope that it would be a gift that meant something. By dawn, I was on the road. Stopped at a gas station 2 towns over for coffee and a donut. While waiting for the pump, I opened Facebook Marketplace just to scroll. Distraction, nothing more. There it was. Custom wood wall art handmade, never used, $20 OBO. Listed by Wendy. The dimensions, the lettering, the burn pattern in the bottom corner I debated sanding again. My heart thudded slow and deep, not from surprise, from confirmation. It wasn't about the wood, it was the rot underneath the varnish. I didn't say a word as I returned to the house. No door slams, no confrontations, just quiet footsteps and a sharper clarity in my chest than I'd felt in years. The hallway was dim. Most of the guests had gone to bed or left altogether. Laughter still echoed faintly from the den where Dad and Uncle Harold were watching an old Western rerun. I bypassed it all, heading straight to the guest room. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my laptop. No tears, just focus. A folder on my desktop, home receipts. I'd kept everything. Every transfer I'd made to Mom's account when she said they needed help with bills. A scanned invoice for the artwork shipping. The email thread with Terry Jo about planning the party months ago. The same thread where she'd suddenly gone silent. I clicked into the family group chat backup. Screenshots showed the messages I sent, where I'd said I'd try to make it, and the ones where Terry Jo accidentally deleted them right after. The timestamps told a different story than the one they'd sold each other. I wrote the letter slowly, addressed to both my parents. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't dramatic, it was itemized, blunt, unforgiving. I listed every dollar I'd spent to be here, every moment they'd erased. And at the bottom, I attached a printout of Wendy's Marketplace post with the title circled in red ink. My final line, I'm done pretending this is family. I folded the letter and slid it into an envelope. Then I walked into the kitchen. The house was still, lights off, except the refrigerator casting a pale glow across the tile. I placed the envelope on top of the cake box, the same cake I'd driven through a storm to bring. Neither had been touched. Then I pulled out my phone, texted Casey back in Portland. They wanted quiet, they'll get it. I packed my things in silence. No noise, no notes, no explanations. Before sunrise, I was gone. The front door clicked shut behind me like a final period on a sentence I was done rewriting. They chose not to hear me. The next voice they'll deal with won't be mine. It'll be legal. I was halfway through the drive back to Portland when I finally let myself breathe. Not cry. Breathe. The weight hadn't lifted, not fully, but I could feel something shifting, like my lungs were mine again. The next morning, I sat across from Milton in a downtown cafe. He wore suspenders and a watch that probably hadn't ticked since Reagan was president, but his eyes were sharp. I handed him the folder. Transactions, emails, the group chat screenshots. I need to make this official, I said. He took one look at the spreadsheet showing Terry Jo's family investment transfers from our parents' retirement fund and frowned. We can flag this, potential financial misconduct, maybe even elder abuse. I nodded. Do what you have to. He smiled, not warm but approving. We'll begin with a formal notice and record freeze request, state and federal. 3 days later, the backlash came in like a slap. Email from Terry Jo. Subject, cease and desist. The body read like a tantrum dressed in a pantsuit. You have 72 hours to retract your statements. Any further slander will result in legal action. You are no longer welcome at family functions. You are mentally unstable and aggressive. Attached was a mock draft from a law firm in Sarasota. Milton read it once and chuckled. Google the attorney's name, he said. I did. The first result was a LinkedIn profile that ended with aspiring paralegal. She's bluffing. I didn't reply to Terry Jo directly. I BCC'd Milton and sent her one line. I look forward to resolving this properly, through federal channels. That night, I opened Instagram for the first time in weeks. I posted a photo of the cake still in my fridge, wrapped in foil. Caption, still fresh, just like my memory. I didn't tag anyone, didn't have to. By morning, I had 7 unread DMs, one from Wendy. You need help, seriously. I left it on read. They had tried to shame me quietly. Now it would all go public, whether they liked it or not. By midweek, my phone buzzed nonstop. Text after text, ping after ping. At first, I thought someone had died. Then I opened one from my old coworker, Hannah. Hey, have you seen what your sister posted? I didn't respond. Just clicked the link. There it was. Terry Jo in full performance mode. Her Facebook post was a masterpiece of passive aggression. Some people live to ruin what others build, especially when they show up uninvited, stir the pot, and lie about our family's finances. Sad to see someone spiral just to feel seen. It had over 400 likes. Stay strong comments. A few heart emojis from Sarasota locals who hadn't seen me in years. I scrolled through names that used to send me birthday texts. Wendy chimed in with her own reply. She ditched Mom's doctor appointment last month. Didn't even call. Don't believe her sob story. That one hit deeper. Because it wasn't just wrong, it was a lie. And Mom didn't correct it. Then came the unfollows. One by one, names disappeared from my feed. Even my own cousin dropped a line. Just wish you hadn't gone public. This could have been private. Private? They'd lit the match and handed me the gasoline. I stayed silent for another 24 hours. Then I posted 3 screenshots. The original text I sent about coming home. The listing for my handmade gift. Never used, $20 OBO. A cropped chat where Terry Jo said, just delete hers, it's cleaner that way. Caption, silence isn't peace, it's erasure. No tags, no hashtags, comments disabled, just truth. I shut my laptop and left it on the kitchen table like a statement. If they wanted exposure, I'd give them the full picture, one financial record at a time. After I hit post, I didn't wait for the explosion. I went straight to work. Milton and I met again over bitter coffee and legal pads. I handed him a fresh folder, everything I hadn't shared publicly, full bank statements, e-signature metadata, even a flagged transaction that routed money from my parents' retirement fund into an account under Terry Jo's LLC, an LLC that didn't exist before last year. And this? Milton asked, tapping one of the PDFs. A pattern, monthly payments labeled consulting going to Wendy's account. His jaw clenched. We'll start the paperwork for Adult Protective Services. That night, I got a call from Dad. You really had to involve strangers in this? We could have talked. I didn't raise my voice. You had years to talk. I gave you months. You chose silence. He hung up without another word. 2 hours later, Mom's number lit up my phone screen. I watched it ring, let it go to voicemail. I already knew what would be on the other end, a quiet plea wrapped in guilt. But this wasn't about guilt anymore. This was about truth. The next morning, I sent a final package, digitally and in hard copy. 1 email, subject line, for your records. 2, my parents, their estate planner, their tax advisor, their attorney. Attached were the same documents I'd given Milton. No explanations, no venom, just facts. By the second day, Terry Jo's post disappeared. Wendy's account was wiped clean. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. I changed my Instagram bio to one line. Truth isn't drama, it's clarity. I didn't burn bridges. I just refused to let them set fire to my name. After sending that last email, something shifted. Not in them, at least not yet, but in me. 2 weeks passed without a peep. No lawsuit, no social posts, just silence. The kind that used to feel punishing now felt like peace. I settled back into my own rhythm, logged hours from my home office, took long walks in the park near my place, and actually started therapy. Real, consistent, no more excuses. I let the stillness do what shouting never could, restore me. Then a small envelope arrived, no return address, just my name in slanted cursive. Inside was a single card, handwritten, my mother's script. We see things now. I just wish we hadn't waited for them to hurt you so loudly first. I read it once, then again. I didn't cry, I didn't crumble. I placed the card in my nightstand drawer, not to forgive, not to forget, but to remember. Not every olive branch deserves a handshake. That afternoon, I emailed their financial advisor. If anything further is needed, please contact my attorney directly. No signature, no warmth. Just another clean line in the sand. 3 days later, I left town. Just me, a weekender bag, and a rental cabin along the Oregon coast. No social media, no family group chats, just the wind, the ocean, and the truth of my own company. The weekend my parents' anniversary dinner had originally been planned, I stood in my little kitchen and baked the same cake I once drove cross-country to deliver. When it cooled, I lit a single candle. I placed an old photo on the table, me, maybe 6 years old, holding both their hands at the beach. "Happy anniversary," I said softly. I showed up. That's what matters. Then I sliced 2 pieces, one for the girl in the photo and one for the woman who made it through the storm, and I ate them both without apology. Some wounds stay visible, but so do boundaries, and this time they'll hold. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Silence is not always peace. Sometimes it's self-defense, and walking away doesn't make you weak. It means you finally chose yourself. Family isn't defined by blood alone. It's defined by the people who show up, who see you, who don't make you beg for space or shrink to fit in. And when those people turn out to be strangers in your own home, it's okay to stop knocking on the door. Build your own, paint it your color, lock it if you need to. You don't owe anyone your silence, especially not to keep their image clean. The truth may be messy, but it's also freeing. And once you've stood in your truth, you don't go back to pretending. You grow. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from something or someone you thought was home? What does family mean to you today? Drop a if you've ever felt erased, or just tell me where you're watching from. Let's talk about it. Let's make this space real. And if this story resonated with you, if it tugged at something deep, maybe something you've been carrying quietly, then hit that subscribe button. I've got more stories coming. Stories that dig deep, speak truth, and remind us we're not alone out here. So if you're still here, thank you. Leave a 1 in the comments if this hit you. Or tell me the city you're from. Let's see how far this story travels. And if you didn't like the video, that's okay too. Tell me why. I'm listening. This is not the end. It's just the first chapter of something honest. See you in the next story.